concept where budding new entrepreneurs, as well as marketing veterans, can engage in dialogue with global heads, learn new strategies and tricks to take their enterprises to new heights. Our next session is an interesting discussion on audio and voice marketing, efficacy in achieving marketing objectives. It is my pleasure to introduce you to our speakers, Mr. Sreeraman Thiagarajan, Chief Executive Officer at Avaz.com, Mr. Ramesh Menon, Chief Executive Officer at Fever FM, Ms. Kavita Reddi, Co-founder at Voxta Voce, and Mr. Siddhartha Roy, Chief Executive Officer at Hungama. A very warm welcome to you all. Over to you, Mr. Thiagarajan.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Hello, my fellow panelists. Welcome to this conclave. So let's begin. Just some context. There are two things that are growing parallelly. One is the penetration of voice assistants. This is an ambient device in our living rooms, in our kitchens, in our car. It's even on, if you have a Fire Stick, it's your Alexa even works on a TV remote, right? You can do the same function on a TV remote that you would do on a smart speaker. I mean, it sounds weird, like you can press the button on your TV remote and ask it to start a car, and it definitely does. It's gone to that level. And on the other side, hearables, right? IDC report says hearables in India grew at 444%. That's just off the chart. So 10 years ago, this rise of smartphone screens, right? The glowing screens led to a rise of video, and now the combination of smart assistants and hearables are giving huge rise to audio content as well. So it's a perfect combination of voice and audio. So that's the context, right? That it's a growing area and a huge opportunity for us. So Kavita, let me ask you a simple question. What are the best use cases for voice from a marketer's point of view?
I think voice, thanks for the invite, Sreeraman. Voice, I would say this, running a voice tech company, but voice is very unique in the sense it allows marketers to build very intimate relationships with consumers and ongoing relationships to actually sustain, develop, and know the consumer and build an ongoing relationship. So I think the use cases for marketers are limitless, really. Anything from looking at brand quizzes to voice commerce. You listen to an ad, you interject, and you order, whether it's a Domino's pizza, or you ask for more information or test drive a car. As you must know, the potential is limitless. And the amazing thing about voice, especially in India for marketers, is that voice is more ubiquitous than screens and typing. And for people who are speaking in a variety of different languages and may not all be literate and type on a small screen in different text, actually voice means they can actually communicate in a much more natural way. So voice, I think, for marketers is a gift horse.
Thank you, Kavita. Siddharth, a lot of experiences on Alexa is powered by Hungama. How's it going for you?
Oh, it's been an amazing journey. I'll tell you, we've obviously, as Hungama, you're aware of the fact that we've been in the digital entertainment space, and especially our proximity into music is very large. We've seen the power of voice. We've seen it in the 2G era as well, when there were no network services. A lot of us ran very large, scalable, voice-related services with telecom networks. And there, as what Kavita was saying, there were engagements that were getting created from you creating audio movies, which was scripted down. So you would take a film like Ashiki and you would bring it down to a 10, 12-minute concise version. You'd have the Sutradhar, and with dialogues of the movie, you would actually build a product around that. Similar in the case of music as well. And that's where we got mostly fascinated with the entire Alexa opportunity. We've had a very successful partnership in the way we've got consumers to consume the service. Today, outside of from a third party service, Hungama Music is the largest service on Alexa. And the kind of interactions, the amount of time that we spent on the AI and ML to make the voice with various dialects work for Hungama Music, I think that's been a partnership and journey that we've thoroughly enjoyed. Apart from this, we've obviously taken a lot of our products into voice. So if I'm doing, I basically we do a lot of work with Ranveer Barar on the food business, which is largely across applications and content that we create. We've also gone out and looked at wanting to create an audio version of the same experience. What Kavita was saying, absolutely right. You want a recipe of butter chicken, you say Alexa butter chicken, and Alexa will give you options, of which one of them hopefully will be our chef that has the ability to connect. This has led to, if you're aware, we are the first company for Alexa that's actually looked at monetizing, because till now the Alexa ecosystem is completely locked. And there has been a very interesting opportunity that we did with Mr. Bachchan at the time that Mr. Bachchan got signed in with Alexa. And that's been an interesting place because they took real estate on Hungama Music, on Alexa, to promote Mr. Bachchan and get that discoverability going because of the size of the community. So it's all so the way we look at audio, for us, audio and video is at par. It
Oh,
all
that's
depends on what's the kind of medium, how you want to communicate, and what do you want to do with it. Because audio has a very large habit formation opportunity on the back of music, obviously.
that's a huge statement, Siddharth. Thanks so much. I mean, audio and video are at par. I mean, that's it's always been latent, but as a veteran, you calling it out like this and a forum like this means a lot to the audio category.
Yeah,
Um,
and I call it out as products that I run. For me,
yeah,
I don't distinct one from the other.
excellent. Ramesh, Smartcast has played a huge role in defining business, non-business audio solutions. I would say, right? How's the you run linear programming on radio. You also have on-demand podcast. How's this audio business doing at HT?
I think we've had unexpected success in this. I mean, we always created programs for limited geographies and drive times, and we realized that the moment we started converting them to digital and now calling them podcasts, suddenly your reach and geography and the number of consumers, the content creators who are always creating great content, suddenly have huge access to audiences which they never had before. A horror show that we used to do, and people used to listen to it from Borivali to Bandra on their drive, is now listened to by people across the world, and you have maybe 1000x more listeners to it than. So you've actually used the opportunity to empower our creators to create content and give them what's their joy ultimately. It's really access to audiences. And here is an RJ who was putting all her effort or his effort into creating content for a drive. Suddenly, his entire audience has exploded. Right? There are people from the US, Bangladesh, Australia, Canada, everyone listening to it, and he's getting joy from the numbers. And of course, we've all got number oriented now because of the moment we post something on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, you're more immediately looking at likes and engagement and whatever else. So everyone's wanting the numbers, and what radio could not give, this is given. So we are very happy with that change that happened. Our creators are very happy with the exposure that they're getting, the response they're getting. I think this only made us a little more confident about investing money behind audio and audio related products, and really converting our entire factory, content factory, into an audio content factory. That's really the way we look at it.
Thanks, Ramesh. Siddharth, you work with a lot of brands, and one of the criticism audio faces is it's not yet a reach medium. It's only a storytelling or an experiential form of advertising, right? So, what are the ROI a marketer can expect when they are investing their dollars in audio?
See, in our case, now because we're a digital company, actually every piece of our audio is has a return call. Okay, so I don't believe audio needs to be only looked at from a pure radio funnel. That also what Ramesh is saying is absolutely right, where their lives are changing on the back of the kind of metamorphosis that their businesses are taking. When he goes digital, he's technically as interactive as it can get. It's not about video audio. It's about the fact that you've got a brand, and if a brand is making a consumer promise, then the consumer has the ability to connect with the brand there and then, even in an audio sphere. Okay. And that is where we are seeing a lot of brands come in. And put marketing dollars extensively and build. You could have communication that goes, okay, I want video, audio, display, and you're building out a campaign funnel which has all kinds of mediums touching base. We are aware of how popular the entire voice assistant based advertising is, especially in the US. It's had has had a sense of sizable maturity out there, and we're starting to see a lot of that starting to come here as well. I believe time will tell, but the medium and the power of the medium is something that cannot be taken away. The fact is that in the morning, I have a set of consumers who come and listen to Hanuman Chalisa.
Uh-huh.
The amount of habit formation I have in my business and the
Yeah.
amount I know about the customer. Okay, I can have cycle agarbatti down to a premium CAC connect out there.
Right. Yeah,
And
you
to me,
mentioned.
that's the power of the medium.
Right. Well said, Siddharth. You mentioned US, right? We have some clients in the US for who we build conversational commerce there. Kavita, in your experience, US, for example, you can say Alexa, order a Tide detergent, and it shows up at your door. In India, we are yet to see that level of commerce happening on voice. Where do you think this is headed, Kavita, in India?
Well, I mean, in the US, it's whilst proportionately it's a small fraction of e-commerce, but in absolute numbers, voice commerce, I think next year is supposedly going to touch 40 billion. And I think whilst India is different, India is not far behind, because actually India is very early adopters of tech generally, and voice, I think, has it doesn't require that much digital knowledge, right? So people are much more familiar with talking, and I think India is actually going to be a really sweet spot for voice commerce. And we've got clients talking to us about voice location based provision of whatever they're looking for, sourcing, searching. And I think that's the precursor to actually voice commerce. So I think it's going to get there. I think there will be adoption in India with voice commerce, and it'll happen probably faster than it's happened in the US once it gets going. And I think for, Siddharth, I mean, what you're doing is you've been a trailblazer in terms of the audio experience. But I think voice commerce will turn out to be a really good sweet spot for you guys with, the conjunction between content, advertising, and commerce, because it's so easy to translate with
Absolutely.
Alyssa or
Yeah.
Domino's and pizza, or get me the ingredients for biryani.
Absolutely. Put it into my cart here.
Yeah, and we are also working with auto companies to have this voice assistant when you're driving. Let's say you have a 20-minute drive from home to office or office to home. Imagine you're done with food ordering, and when you reach home, your food also reaches just in time, right? So that's the level of convenience you can do with voice. And Ramesh, there is a question from chat. There is a question from Sachin on the chat. I'm going to read it out. Snackable video content is in demand. With audience attention span going less than 8 seconds. How do you think voice and audio taking this position to earn its share of the pie? So essentially, like, audience attention is shorter. What can voice do about it? Voice and audio do about it?
I think the beauty is that in the audio space, we started off with low, duration content, thinking that that's the way the audience was going, and we find as we are growing, we find longer and longer forms of content working. Actually, we are actually going the reverse direction. Video went the other way. We started with long form content and then made smaller and smaller and smaller, and now you're talking about reels and whatever else. But in audio, we're actually taking the other direction. We're saying now let's launch long form content, because we find audiences engaging for longer and longer times on the content, which also means that there is far more involvement from the audience in audio content. Yeah. There is actually, for marketers especially, it's much better content to advertise in. I wish brand managers and marketing managers and agency guys would would understand that about voice and about audio. Very different from the short attention spans in nothing. I mean, if you're switching on an audio, you're not waiting to listen to a 2 second audio or 5 second audio and 10 second audio, and you'll actually probably get irritated with a 5 second audio. You'd want it much longer, and therefore you're more involved with it. And I think that's the beauty of audio.
Yeah, it's a very committed cohort of audience who love audio, right? They make time for it. It's almost going back to an appointment viewing, appointment listening, saying, my morning walk, I know a person who shortlists the podcast and adds it and keeps it downloaded and ready for a morning walk in the previous night. So that when they wake up in the morning, they're not wasting time, aaj kya suno, all those kind of things.
No,
Yeah.
so I'll just give you a small insight. When the COVID lockdown happened, it was not that at least from a music service standpoint, we had a jump in usage. In fact, we had a certain drop in usage because the consumer habit had been put to standstill. We also have the same peaks and troughs. In our case, we end up seeing that data in a far more accountable manner. Ramesh has to run various sets of research. In our case, all of that data comes to us on a time band, and we're able to understand. So just to put that in, and I am in complete concurrence. We've observed this. Consumers on podcasts are spending more time. The content, it is not I mean, there's nothing that आपका 5 minute का content होना चाहिए 10 minute का. It all depends on the story that you want to tell the consumer and the conversation that you want to make out of it.
Well, the beauty of audio content is that it doesn't distract from what you're doing. It can be a companion alongside your activity, whether it's walking, whether it's cooking, whether it's, tidying up or doing something else, or you're driving. And that means it can actually stay with you throughout the day. And it allows marketers so many more potential touch points for engagement. I mean, what we are seeing is that, we are a voice tech company. We build custom voice assistants like, as you're using with Alexa, Siddhartha. But the beauty is that people are coming to us and saying, given the explosion of audio content, what new experiences can we create as brands around the popularity of this or that audio content to reach out to our customers, to either take a format and tell the story in the same way, or take, we've worked with brand campaigns with Amitabh Bachchan, take a star and do it, or to take a product and sell it through simply through an ad. But basically it allows, because there is no cutoff, the consumer doesn't go away from audio content in the same way that you do from TV. There's no stop and start. There are lots of potentially productive moments.
Yeah, Kavita, to corroborate that, during lockdown, that now that you mentioned, Siddharth, we saw two use cases of podcasts going up. We had like a 22% increase in listenership. One was mental wellness, for obvious reason, everybody was fried. But the other one were a lot of upskilling content. We used to call this as Bartan and blockchain. What that means is, a lot of us, you and me also, there were no maids and domestic help available. We had to do our own chores, running a washing machine, drying it, then picking it back, doing the dishes and stuff like that. And we saw a lot of people listening to upskilling content because they had time and they were doing something so mundane. Their hands and body would just do it while they're mentally observing something really useful. Ramesh, you saw anything like this? Any trends during the last 1 year? Especially during the lockdown or something like that?
Last year has been only one trend, which is that we started a podcasting business and we went from 0 to 5 million in exactly 1 year, and we never expected it. That's really the singular trend. I'll tell you another interesting insight about the daily news wrap that we do. We do it with a voice bot, right? We don't, nobody was willing to do a daily podcast, which is a daily news wrap. Nobody wanted to become a news reader. Early in the morning, she had to get up early and then sort of do it. And they said, if nobody's agreeing, let's do a voice bot.
Are you using a text
and let's
voice?
get it recorded every morning through the bot. So we were using Alexa and the services from sorry, not Alexa, Amazon, the voice that they have with the AWS thing.
The Lex and
Are
Poly,
you
yeah.
using
So
Amazon Polly?
yeah, Amazon Polly. It was last month. It hit 1 million listens, right? 1 million unique listens on a voice, and probably in our portfolio it was the largest. So bots actually beat human beings in listenership last month for us. So that's the beauty of absolutely unusual things for a people organization like us that we've seen in the last last year or so.
Yeah,
So
Ramesh, talking of bots beating humans, there is one question here. Maybe one of you can take it. How brands should utilize voice assistant to deliver helpful customer experiences?
Well, we at Voxta, we do customer experience both on call centers and mobile apps. And we found that the reason that through the pandemic, people, brands, and companies are turning to us is one is to cope with, the shortfall in staff and the general uncertainty. But the other thing is most brands are trying to stay open and talk to customers round the clock and provide a high quality experience, a high quality customer experience, which when you look at it, there was one brand that we managed to shave 40% of their operational costs whilst providing customer service in 7 different languages, simply because when you're working with voice bots, you can provide a high quality of homogenized customer service far quicker than they would have been able to put up a call center, train staff, and like you said, get somebody to wake up, do shift work of providing round the clock customer service. So voice bots can be incredibly useful to provide a high level of customer service, and accuracy levels are so high, not just with us, but with others, but of course, with us, that it is a really viable alternative now.
Yeah, thanks, Kavita. Just adding to that, by the design, these are called as assistant because their persona is to help, whether it's Siri or Google Assistant or Alexa. So helping, customer experience is all about getting them what they want, whether it is upselling or just resolving their grievance. Voice assistants provide a fantastic use case there. Okay, so talking about creating audio first experiences, video, most marketers have kind of mastered it over the last 10, 12 years, but many still grapple with creating audio experience. They don't know whether they should just insert jingles. I get a lot of inquiries like that. I mean, that's one way to do it, but that's so boring, right? Then some people come up with, okay, I'm in a category where I don't know if I create this content, will anyone listen? For example, we got a inquiry from a B2B life sciences company. They make all this centrifuge and stuff like that for healthcare blood test lab. They want to do something in audio, but they don't know what to do, right? So the question is, what are some good practices for creating audio experiences? Ramesh, Siddharth, please weigh in.
go ahead, Siddharth.
Yeah. I mean, very clearly, the way we look at it is that you need to be true to what the brand wants to put out as a promise or as a communication. And then at a creative level, you work to create. Now, you may call that jingle, it could be a product related layer as well, where there's a lot of work that we do on the playlisting front. A lot of brands come and ask us to create music for them, and this music then goes into the playlist, and the playlist then get populated out. So there's work that we've done with Colgate, whole host of others within that space as well. Then there are, with the entire space of non-music, there's a lot of opportunities opening up with health and fitness, with wellness. There's a lot of content that can be created weaving brand values in, and let that be promoted as content and not an ad. To me, that is a classic AFP model, which has been done on radio for the longest time. It's been done on TV for the longest time, where the content is presented for all practical purposes as content that the consumer likes to listen and consume. I think that core fundamental, if that, so it's the same drop, but you bring it within our container, And because it's digital, it has the ability to be lifted out and turned into what you would call as an ROI based or a measurement based interaction.
Ramesh, your comments on that too, please.
No, so I think there are areas where it can work very well. Storytelling is a great place. Like Siddhartha was saying, typical, branded content kind of stuff. Whether it's on the story that which we've been doing forever on the video side, there is a huge opportunity to do it on the audio side. I think it hasn't been evangelized enough, or with agency teams, media agency teams, and they tend to be the gatekeepers to this entire thing, right? And that's where I think the whole ecosystem suffers. I think it's important for us and people like us to start evangelizing these with the media agencies, because when they're still working in a very traditional way. They've understood digital and they've understood CPMs, but they don't understand listens. They don't understand things that go beyond a CPM or or a CPC. And listen is infinitely superior to either a click or an impression. And that logic still seems to have things. So you can do so much, but I think the lack of awareness or the lack of appreciation of this entire thing amongst the decision makers, I wouldn't say in the companies, but in the agencies and at the lower levels of management in companies, is coming in the way of that. There's a huge opportunity in terms of that.
Yeah. There is also a lot of puppy love towards something Western, right? Like Google and Facebook sounds very fancy. That the media planners, they're it's path of least resistance, right? It's proven. You put some stuff there, you get.
And they can ask some intelligent questions saying, "What's the performance metrics?" And then they can impress the boss saying that I delivered this impression and so on. But effectiveness, real effectiveness, it's not there. That's really the.
Yeah. Also, one other gentleman in a different forum was mentioning that e-commerce was struggling 10 years ago. Nobody took it seriously, but then companies started having an e-commerce manager now, whether it's their own first-party website or listing on a platform. Now there are e-commerce manager for most products. Same with digital marketing. I mean, 10 years ago when I was in digital marketing, believe it or not, I had to sell YouTube, I had to sell Facebook, I had to sell everything to every brand, saying why they should be on social media and so on and so on. So I mean, then eventually there is a digital manager in those companies. So I think I haven't seen any voice and audio marketing person in a marketing team so far in any company.
Actually, that's what's interesting is in the US, almost 90% of companies are now hiring and investing in voice,
Yeah.
right? And there are people, voice content players like Spotify, the BBC, Snap, who are actually developing their own voice assistants because they know long term they do not want to hand over data to Alexa or Google. So it's not a viable option to actually work with, if you're a content player, to work with them and hand over all your user data to them, which is where people like us come in, because we are independent players and our data goes straight back to the client. It doesn't reside with us. So I think actually, we're just at the inflection point where, in the same way that once things started going online, every company had to have a website, every company had to have then a web manager, then they had to have an e-commerce manager. We are at that point where sooner or later it is going to be the case that everyone will have to have a voice UI person within a brand to look at it as an effective marketing and a consumer channel, in addition to the existing ones.
Yeah. Also, Siddharth, Alexa in Hindi, there is Alexa in English, but how do you see the pattern between, I'm asking from a marketing point of view. There is a perception that Alexa users are somewhat a premium cohort. A Google Assistant user also uses on a geophone, which is like a mass. Have you seen any differences in this kind of different voice environments? Alexa English versus Alexa Hindi versus Google Assistant versus.
So I did not bring in the mix of language. I think India is another Europe. Okay,
Yes.
It certainly is. Every
we are in my mind literally in the start of this journey. Content's going to get created. There are going to be specialists within languages that are going to come in, build products, and flourish. It's a matter of time. Today, there are products that we are interacting with where with Siri, with Google, we're trying to figure out if regional languages in India work. We're all aware of how much time it took to even Google Maps to get to where it is today when it says to me 37 minutes to your office. In a place like Bombay, it could still take you 43, 48 minutes. But I believe he's still got a lot better now. I mean, they're getting it absolutely bang on in most of the cases. 5, 6 years back, there was a lot of learning that was happening in play. We're all aware of how voice has been homogenized in those languages, those products as well. So, in the way I look at it, is that the regional uh, opportunities are there. Companies such as us are obviously wanting to build our products which satiate consumers from any language. For me, it's not about going into a premium cohort. Today, the product is with a premium cohort, but I believe the whole ecosystem is whichever which way working towards to go a lot more deeper, because the power of voice in India can be path breaking in terms of scale. And all of us, I believe, are working towards that vision and journey. So time will tell, but be rest assured, everyone will come to the party.
Well, we are working. We have a suite of 9 Indian languages, and we have found massive take up in Telugu, Marathi, Bengali. So I actually think that voice is particularly suited to India, and the adoption curve will be far quicker in India because it's precisely the diversity of language and dialect which makes it both an opportunity and a challenge. And I think, users will, if you're looking to develop and reach out to users in different languages, then voice is the way.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we know brands who have very large exposures to certain markets and regions in India. If you see them, they only advertise into those media and
Exactly.
mediums.
Yeah. And people ask, people actually say, we're looking for something in Andhra, or we're looking for something in Bengal, and we're actually going to build a marketing campaign to appeal to our users. So I think, Siddharth and Ramesh, we should talk and see how we might be able to collaborate with you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Ramesh, there is a lot of back and forth in terms of news websites, monetizing or digital publishers taking away the revenue, etc. But with audio, it doesn't happen, right? So, what do you think would be the way forward for news publishers, institutional publishers on voice and audio? I mean, they shouldn't seed the. I mean, initially it was all excitement, right? For news publishers, look, my result is on top of Google, and then few years later, okay, it's not doing me any justice. So imagine today we shouldn't follow the same footstep again, and 3 years later we are wondering, okay, I'm the top on Alexa, but it's not doing me any justice to my bottom line, right? So what are the some futuristic thoughts you have on monetizing in this voice and audio?
No, I think while I won't comment on the larger piece, I think for audio and for audio content creators like us, the single most important differentiator, or the single element that will change our trajectory is really programmatic advertising on audio. That's really what will change everything. I think people like us need to invest in creating the SSPs and DSPs required to do that programmatic advertising. Uh, Somebody needs to start consolidating inventory and consolidating uh, content or listens on platforms, so that what happened in digital can happen on audio as well. Of course, I'm sure Google and everybody else is working on it as well. But while they're working on it, we need to be doing that as well. So our effort will be to really build out that programmatic platform, the SSPs required to really make sure that inventory can be consolidated, and people can actually get audiences and invest in audiences on audio as well, just
Yeah.
like they do on digital. That's really the big change that can happen, and I'm hoping that will happen in the next 6 months. And
Wow,
it's already been in the US, and it's unfortunate that in India it's so small, except in silos within
yeah,
companies.
yeah. No, that's well said. In fact, with cookies going away soon and everybody relying on first-party data, a consolidated approach amongst publishers would mean a lot to marketers, because I mean there are a lot of alternate theories to cookies cohorts, and Google calls it as FLOC, but it's made fun more than, Oracle wrote nasty things about it. Anyway, so I think a consolidated approach from institutional publishers that controls first-party data, where Siddhartha said there is a callback data on every stream. There is measurement on, Kavita, even you were saying that companies don't want to seed their data to a third-party platform. I think few years from now, the first-party companies with first-party data, which means institutional publishers, will have a much higher potent way to monetize it, because they know consumer behavior as much as what a third-party platform today did. Right? Yeah, I think that future looks bright. Siddharth, what do you think?
No, no, without doubt, and we've seen on the ad tech side, there's obviously been serious amount of evolution happening, especially on the back of both external changes that are happening. We're aware of GDPR, the fact that came in first, that basically started the entire change. There was this big brouhaha that with GDPR coming in, we will have as destinations, as products, we would lose our understanding on the user, which necessarily did not necessarily happen. In fact, GDPR brought in a lot of compliance and helped us to structure our data in the right way and be able to engage with the user. In turn, you went in and you brought in analytic solutions, you brought in notification engines, third-party checks, and all of that today. Today, when I look at my consumers on a daily basis, that gets broken into roughly about 2,800 segments. All of that is done on values, which is all first party. I may not know you as a name till you've not put your name in. But what you're doing with my platform is extremely important. And to me, that data set, if married in the right way with advertising, is extremely interesting. So I believe all of that journeys will happen. We'll see how cookies get played out. A lot of us have built the performance side of the business has very large dependencies on cookies. And how does that gets interchanged? Time will tell. But the fact is that the consumers there, they are consuming our content. In turn, we know a lot about the customer.
Thank you, Siddharth. We have about 6 or 7 minutes. Audience watching it, if you have any more questions, please ask now. In the meanwhile, may I request all of us to give a closing notes? Kavita, I'll start with you.
Thanks. I think what's interesting is, to go back to what you spoke about a few minutes ago, which is how are we using voice, and the fact that unlike e-commerce, we haven't all got used to either the power of voice, or marketers haven't understood the potential to reach out to consumers. I think the way things are going is in the same way everyone ended up with their own website. We are going to end up with everyone will have a voice interface, and it won't, whilst at the moment Google and Alexa are leading the front, everyone is keen to experiment and so jumping on the bandwagon, but that may not be the most fruitful way, because consumers may not either be using Google Assistant or have Alexa. I think the way forward will be every brand, every marketer will have a voice interface for their website, for their mobile app, and it'll become as normal as having a web interface. And at that point, as Mr. Ambani said, data is the new oil. That is what is going to power the future, because we will know our consumers much better with the frequency of audio interactions and with the potential for much more data. That will be the vision of the future.
Yeah, I agree. Like every brand has an app of their own. Every brand has a website of their own. So probably
Yeah.
they will have their own voice and audio play as well.
Yeah, and the big guys have seen it coming.
Yeah, yeah.
The kind of Spotify's and the Snaps and the BBCs have and FTs. They've all gone down that way.
Thank you, Kavita. Ramesh, closing remarks, please.
Yeah, to evangelize voice, and to say that it is immersive, it is non-intrusive. It's something that we've been doing for ages, from our mythological times. So I think Indians will adapt to it or adopt it faster than any other part of the the globe. And it's really for marketeers to realize the power of voice and the power of advertising on voice platforms or voice products. Right? I think marketers have still not understood it. Like we said earlier, every organization requires a voice marketing manager or a voice, specialist in their marketing team, like they had digital specialists, not 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So that's really the big change that needs to come. We need to evangelize to our agencies, media agencies especially, that voice is the future. Voice can actually give them more effectiveness, better effectiveness on their advertising money, and go beyond the metrics that they're able to show to their clients on digital, and tell them that CPLs or cost per the effectiveness of listens is much more than clicks or impressions, and that's really what we as a group and people like us really need to go on about. So that's what I would look for.
Yeah, I'll take up a detailed session with you on this. I think I got some ideas as you spoke. I'll ping you later. But thank you so much. Siddharth, closing notes, please.
I think this journey is just about started. I don't believe uh, it's the classic demand supply play out that happens. Okay, you obviously create supply prior to demand, and as you get into an inflection in scale phase, that's when marketeers, brands start looking at the medium in a far more serious manner. And I believe we're still a little time away with regards to that opportunity as a lot more numbers come in. There is no doubt that India will be one of the largest voice markets. I am talking to you from a music perspective where technically maturity of phase one of that entire category is already happened with the size and scale of community that all of us together have within the overall ecosystem. Uh, it's a matter of time that you will see the medium of voice starting to become a very, very large point of call for users. And to me, uh, what you would call as various sets of use cases, all of that will happen for brands as brands start seeing consumers gravitating to a format of connect, which is something that they'll want to and would want to be there from a need perspective.
Thank you, Siddharth. Just on this note, adding to what everyone said, I think it's a very, very fairly simple evolution of how computing has evolved. Like, for example, we had computer the size of a room, which moved to that was not used by many, and then we had keyboards. Still, it was not so great. But when the mouse was invented, it became commonplace. Bank, school, everyone started using it, and for 20 years, mouse was still GUI, graphical user interface, was still the thing, right? But then touch came. iPhone with the proper touch came, and now we have some 4 billion smartphones in the world, right? So it's the change of UI from a punch cards to mouse to touch, and now the next evolution is voice, because you don't even have to touch, you can simply speak. It's a whole new generation of people coming in. Like, if you look at a difference between a 12 the 15-year-old kid and a 6-year-old kid, the 6-year-old kid is a native to voice. They learn speaking to it, they listen to it, they get stories from it. There were these videos of kids solving maths problem, asking help from Alexa and so on. So it's a whole new generation who are getting used to a conversational way of doing things, right? And of course, audio voice tech is nothing without supplementing audio content in it, whether it's music, non-music, spoken word, books, so on. So we are in a great time. I think the year or so, within a year or so, we should touch that inflection point that Siddharth mentioned. It's a great time to be in this. Thank you, Kavita. Thank you, Ramesh. Thank you, Siddharth, for being with us today.
Thank you.
Yeah. Look forward to interacting with you also.
Pleasure.
Thank you everyone for watching. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today. This discussion was really insightful. I would like to thank our cloud communication partner Root Mobile, our session partner IAB Tech Lab in partnership with Popmatic, gold partner LogicServe Digital, session partner Agria, bronze partner Bobble AI, and knowledge partner Kantar. Those were some really great insights. I'm sure the audience loved listening to all of you. Thank you so much for taking time out to join us today. We truly appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back with our next session shortly. Please stay tuned.
Thank you.
Thank you.